Hello, everyone. My name is Kurt Wedewer. I'm Regional President with American Trust. And today, first of all, I'm excited to be here. And thank you for joining me. By the way, it's very flattering that you would take a half hour of your time to listen. But I'm excited. I'm excited to communicate a message to you. Today what I want to talk about is building your advisory business. And, I have got an interesting perspective, at least from my vantage point, on what it means to build a retirement business. I've essentially been on both ends of it. And when I say that, backgrounds, bios, they never mean a ton to me. You can read a bio, and so I don't want you to do that. But I want to give you maybe some basis for what this presentation is about and how I've seen it work. So essentially, my background, way back in the early 90s, I'm in Dubuque, Iowa. The retirement division, defined contribution division of now Prudential, at the time it was Cigna, moved to Dubuque, Iowa. And I was fortunate enough to be getting out of school at that time and was hired as one of their first defined contribution underwriters. And when I say underwriters, I was involved in intimate or intricate plan design. And it was really outstanding trading, a lot of mathematics involved, a lot of defined benefit, defined contribution, hybrid type of stuff. But fundamentally, those were different times where we could utilize the text code and individually design documents for large employers. And I'm evolving into something here, but I spent a handful of years doing that. And I learned exactly how to manipulate's too strong of a word, but how to utilize the text code, how to utilize really different things inside of the defined contribution environment to create outcomes. That was the goal. So I supported sales. And fundamentally, I would get a plan to take a look at and be asked to create a better widget, design-wise, all around to create a better outcome. A handful of years later, American Trust called. American Trust at that time was a family-owned bank, about 100 years, same family. And they had a very, very small couple of retirement plans, 30 to be exact, record kept on Lotus 123. That'll age me a little bit. We had no record-keeping system or anything else, but I knew that what I couldn't do for a small plan, meaning we just wouldn't do it at a very large shop, Cigna was a large provider at the time, was very, very transferable to the small to mid-sized plan. Now, most advisors, especially at that time, and retirement providers did not want to do that. They wanted to step away from the small plans. And we have been able at American Trust, we were purchased, and I'll maybe touch on that down the road here. We were purchased by EdgeCo, and we have a sole mission of providing outcomes, especially to the small to mid-sized employer, but mainly to help advisors do very, very well in this industry, in that small niche. So I'm going to talk about that for the next half hour. And if you do have questions, I won't see them come in. But I assure you that hopefully I'll answer them during the presentation. I'll try to touch on a lot of topics. But afterwards, I assure you, I will get back to you if you do happen to have a question or want to reach out regarding something. So anyway, we'll start there. Intended to disrupt. At the end of the day, you've got to find a way to make money. That's very important. Now, naturally, you want to make money, but you also want to help people. And I would say those advisors, and I have sat, being on the end of it, where we grew to 1,000 plans before our acquisition. We grew from 30 to 1,000 plans, essentially organically. We were advisor centric, but I always communicated to advisors and I presented to a lot of rooms about the model that works. I've seen the model work. We put a model into play, and that's what I want to communicate today. How do I do it? And doing it means you need to challenge the status quo. Things were different in the 90s. Heck, 401ks were 10 years old. In 1992, they were invented in 82. DB, profit sharing plans, there weren't a lot of things. 404C came into play. There were a lot. It's been an evolution, but I can tell you there's still a lot of trends. And if we're focused in the small to mid-size area, I can tell you it is still very underserved. So today, what I want to do, I want to talk about state of retirement. I see it. I see it every single day, growing from the ground up. Now in a somewhat larger organization, it's still the same. What's going on in retirement? And there are opportunities. I've never seen a better time to be an advisor. Even with this COVID period, there's never been another period like this where plans should be in play. You have to create your brand. I've said this many times, but what are you known as? I used to ask our relationship managers, I used to ask advisors all the time, tell me about your business model. You're the advisor known for what? What makes you different? I always say to this, I say it to my kids, I say it to everybody, what are you good at? You have to be good at one thing, especially one thing, and then learn to overcome the weaknesses. You have to build a business, and I can tell you, building a business, that seems simple, it's more than that. Right now, the Department of Labor is so heavy-handed. I say this, fee disclosure was meant to be fee pressure. Having had conversations with the Department of Labor through many years, that was meant to expose certain situations. And of course, when you have to disclose, typically you're going to take fees down. So making money in this business has become tougher. And finally, how do I challenge the status quo? How do I make a business? Grow it, get business, keep it, and then make money in other ways. And that's really what this is going to be. So anyway, let's start. What's going on? What's going on in our industry today? 90% of 401k plans are 10 million or less. Yet the advisors, especially most of the retirement programs, the bigger box shops, are pursuing large plans. That's what they want. I get it. That's a profitable situation, but there's only 10% of them. And I can tell you, it's hard to move one of those plans, and they typically have a short shelf life. My advice is always don't even chase them. Many times I hear advisors say, hey, I've got an in on this, $750 million plan. I would say, unless that's rock solid, walk away from it, because it's a lot of time. And if you have it, you're going to build a model up for it, and it's gone in 2 years. That just happens. Number two, 54% of plans. I'm going to get to design here a little bit because it's near and dear, but I can tell you it's so imperative to understand. And when you want to get business, that's typically how it happens. 54% of small plans use a safe harbor. And I would say, without a doubt, at least 70% of those safe harbor plans were unnecessary. A better plan design, and it's very expensive for the employer, by the way. And I'll get into that in a minute. 81% of plans offer target date funds. I don't have any issues with target date funds. Naturally, I'm a managed account believer, and we'll touch on that as well. 81% of plans have target date funds. The next stat is very telling as to whether or not that's good. 89% of participants are at least 5 years behind where they need to be. 89% are at least 5 years behind. From an actuarial standpoint, I'm 5 years behind. Since target date funds typically go in 5-year increments, that means 89% of participants are in the wrong target date fund. So the system is flawed. QDIA is dropping you into your age only. Those people, they're not in the right fund, and that is devastating down the road. And then finally, 62% of participants, when asked, hey, who gives you help? Who should be helping you as it pertains to your retirement? They would say their plan sponsor. So what are we doing as advisors? What tools are you giving them? And what are you doing to, get those people to the finish line? Because the plan sponsor doesn't want to do it. Funny stat down at the bottom. My marketing person found this 203% increase in Google search interest to financial help during that was kind of the COVID crisis, right? That's when it blew up. 203%. That tells me they're not getting help otherwise and anywhere else. Otherwise, they're not getting help. And so what are we doing? How did your participants get communicated with? Or more than anything, what kind of opportunity does this present for myself? This is very telling information, but again, there's no defined service model. If I jump to the advisors, and I don't mean this in a critical way, I have just talked to hundreds and thousands of advisors, and maybe the best thing I've been able to do, or that I've been afforded in my career, that spanning over 30 years in this business, I've seen advisors be overwhelmingly successful, and I've seen some struggle, and it had nothing to do with intelligence level, motivation, or anything else. It typically was their model. How are they doing it? I don't blame people. They don't want to spend time with participants. But I would say that anything you build in this world, can you get to the third shift employee as easily as the first shift employee? Are you building the model that allow you to do that? because I can tell you as we get down the road in this presentation, you'll understand what I'm getting at, where you do need to get to those people. That's where it's made. And then finally, 44% of plan sponsors who do use an advisor do not understand what their fiduciary role is. They think they walked away from it. So a lot of stuff going on, but there are opportunities. This picture, it's my favorite picture. I've used it for some time now, and I think this is true in life. Everybody is best at something, and they've got weaknesses, and that's especially true for advisors. Hey, it's tough to be good at everything. You know, you like to be, but are you an expert in all those areas? But if you're going to truly be good in this game, in the retirement game, and make money doing it, you've got to have every spot on this circle solved. You have to have it. The way this is evolving, having seen it and having seen advisors do extremely well and struggle, they have this circle solved because every one of them come into play at some point. I'm going to touch on them. Each one of them is going to get, a few will get more touch than the others, but these have to happen. But first, your service model up in the corner. What is your service model? Define your market. And when I say define your market, you're the person, I'm the advisor known for what? If your clients asked, what are you really good at? Would they be able to answer that? Define your market. Don't chase the big ones. I hope you get one and hang on to it, but it's tough, and it's tough to build a business that way. Choose your provider. Choose your partners, I should say. And I mean that based on your model and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Hey, I don't want to do the enrollment meetings. Does that group provide education? I don't want to be with everybody. I need a very high-tech online system. You need to decide what you want to do and what you do not want to do, and then marketing, which is hands down my favorite topic. How do I reach out? You can't be one of those people just send a letter. Nobody responds to those anymore. You can't answer. You can't just call cold and say, hey, I'd like to bid on your plan. You've got to have a reason to call. And I'm going to try to give you some here in a little bit. That's your service model. And what are you doing for the sponsor? Remember, that's how you get in the door. How do you propose to a plan sponsor? Why do they want to let you in? What's your service model? 4 meetings a year, 2 meetings a year. I'm a plan design expert. I will change your design, and you're going to enjoy the a couple slides I have in a minute if you like plan design. What are your strategies? Fee and those things. Fee and fiduciary, they become commodities, by the way. Anybody can have their plan bid out or have a quick fiduciary analysis. You got to have them, but those have become commodities. How are you making a difference? And I'm asking that question legitimately, and hopefully you're asking yourself, am I different than the guy or the gal next to me? So anyway, plan design, near and dear to me, of course. This is how we were able to build that American Trust. No technology, nothing, but I was able to take what you can do inside the tax code with these small to mid-sized plans is really striking. And I'm not talking about a volume submitter plan. I'm not talking about simple prototypes. That used to be a very popular word back in the day. I'm talking about true custom design, where you take a look at it. You take a look at a census, and you take a look at what they're trying to accomplish. And I'll show you how to uncover that in a little bit here as well. But basically, you should be asking 3 questions. Every sales call that I think I've ever been on where I was directly involved in, it's, hey, if you had 3, one of these 3 you want, if you could keep the non-highly NHCE, that's non-highly compensated employees, if I could keep their contribution from the employer the same, would I want to increase the highlies? That's one situation, especially now in this COVID era. Hey, maybe the company's not making as much money. I can't afford to lose the key people, right? But I do need to cut back somewhere else. That's the second question. Keep the highlies the same, but reduce the non-highlies. And then finally, hey, we're in an unbelievable growth period. I want to maximize. I need tax breaks. So real quickly, let me show you a scenario. This is interesting. And I think I've gotten more business this way through the years than any other way that we've been able to. And there are many ways to get it. This is one. Very common. This is an actual case. 5 owners, HCEs, average age 57, 30 nons, age 33. They were putting away, fundamentally employer contributions of 111 grand. Forget the employee. That's 401k. They can defer it. None of that's changing. Non-highlies were getting 77 of it in a basic safe harbor match. And this is going to go to, if I had to win one plan tomorrow morning to put shoes on my kid, as I like to say, I would go hunt down a safe harbor plan. I would go hunt down a safe harbor because there's a good chance I can improve it, and it's expensive. So 111 grand of contribution, 70% of it fundamentally, 69 goes to the nons, 31 to the Highleys. That is not a good ratio, by the way, if we're trying to maximize Highleys. Here's number one. Hey, I just want to keep the non-Highleys right at 77, but I'm going to change. What I did was create a multiple rate group, cross-tested new comparability plan. Every Highly got his own rate group or her own rate group. Took it from 34,000 to 103. $70,000 instantly increased on the spot. And by the way, why would we have a safe harbor then? We don't need it. Why would we have a safe harbor? Everybody knows what's the problem with a safe harbor. They're great, they're simple, but you can't have a vesting schedule. So is there turnover? You lose, on average 15% of your staff a year. All those people walk out the door 100% vested. That would have been forfeiture money to fund a lot of that increase. The safe harbor plan is very simple. It's fun to administer from our end. I'll tell you that as a record keeper. It's easy for an advisor. You don't have to worry about things. It is not efficient for most employers. For most, you got to learn how to beat that thing up. You got to know how to analyze it. Discretionary. Here's number two. Hey, I want to keep the Highleys where they were, but reduce the non. Well, I kept the Highleys at 34. I can't afford to lose them, but I got to save some money. I was able to take the employer contribution down 51 grand without doing another thing. Creating just unique plan design. Didn't need a safe harbor. Finally, number three, max me out. How much would it cost me to max out? Took the nons from 77 to 96, 19 grand, and I was able to take the rest of it up from it was 34,000 to 275 for the Highleys. Talk about tax breaks where we're trying to do all of these different things, non-qual, et cetera, when it was right in front of us. Same plan. All three of those scenarios existed. And I would say, imagine if that were your plan. You're the advisor on that, and I was able to walk in the door with those scenarios for the employer. Was my favorite line, and I know we're going to help an advisor win a plan when this plan sponsor says, "Hey, is this new?" Because it's it better be, or my advisor's gone. Think about the things you can do and accomplishes a lot of goal. More money in, happy employer, more fee income for the advisor. In that order. And finally, no vesting schedule in addition to the savings. Went back and looked at if there were a 3-year vesting schedule just in the last 3 years, this employer would have saved 23 grand on all three scenarios, because in all three scenarios, the employees quit. That money is out there. That's how inefficient. And when I say, what are you good at? Are you making a difference? This isn't going on in our world. 54% of plans under $10 million, roughly in safe harbors. We're not doing it. So when I say break the mold, how do you do it? That's just one way. Number two, what else is going on? We talked about target date funds. And again, are they efficient? Well, if 89% of participants are at least 5 years behind, in our data, 67% are 10 or more. That means 2 target date funds from where they should be. What's your experience? What are you doing? How are you, differentiating yourself from the advisor next to you? And I like to use this to get business when you walk in and you show them this analysis. So fundamentally, what do you stand for? To me, all participants, it's math, right? Retirement is math, and it's playing the odds, and it's over time. And we've broken it down to, or I believe in breaking it down to, turn it into math. We're fundamentally right. What is all math? Solving for X. So in this case, in a DB plan, it's how much does the employer have to put away? That was always wonderful. Way back, there were a lot of DB plans. Now, the X should be what kind of return, what rate of return does the employee need to retire? And that's the basis for a lot of this presentation as it pertains to the participant experience. Where do I need to get them from a return standpoint to hit that goal? And there's so many things. As record keepers or as a partner, what I think you need to know, what we already know is, I know your age, I know your comp, and I'm speaking from your seat. We know your age, participant. We know your comp. We know where you live. Tax rates are such a big thing because I have your earnings history and your age. We have your Social Security estimate. We know who your beneficiary is. Are you married? Not married? We know what you're putting away. We know what the employer formula is. That is gold. And how do we turn that into a formula? Now, what the other things you need to know, what other assets do they have? What kind of debt do they have? All of those factors come into play. And then how does it change? How does it change? How does life change? People get married, they get unmarried all the time. They have children. All of those things are enormous events inside retirement. And does your model account for it? And when I say choose a partner, you have to account for this data. You have to collect it. It has to turn into a formula. But I'm going to say this, and it's the most real statement that I've learned through all of these years. When you're sitting across from a participant, whether you're sitting across from them virtually or they're just doing it electronically, if they feel you know more about their financial future or their financial picture than they do, they're going to listen to you and they're going to interact with it. And that's the key. How do I show them where they're at and make them want to improve it, make them want to interact? And that's really the basis for a lot of this. So anyway, now that's the participant experience. What about the employer experience? What about that employer experience? Participation rate, goal completion rate. How do you evaluate yourself? How do you evaluate yourself? When you walk into a plan sponsor, are you doing this? Hey, what's our participation rate versus the industry? What's our goal completion? Hey, was it an increase or decrease? I've seen advisors make promises. I will increase your participation rate by blank percent a year or discount my fee. And employers love that because it's also, if your participation rate is good, why do I need a safe harbor plan? Why can't I have a vesting schedule? Goal completion, which is at the end of the day, everything. It's everything. Am I on pace or am I not? And then engagement by age. Are you doing campaigns? Down at the bottom. So if I walked in to compete with one of your plans with tools where I will reach out to those participants between age 30 and 40 who are not participating to the maximum extent, I will reach out to retirees. What is your plan to make money? So that's the in-plan experience. Now let's talk about making money, because I believe this. It's hard to make money inside of a retirement plan. You know, when it comes to this. Another very telling statement that I love to make when an advisor will call me, hey, what's happening? How do I make money in this business? The plans I want, the $8 million plans, I can't get them. Or if I do, I got to bid so low, I can't make any money. How do you make money? You know, and the thing I want to tell you is gather participants, not assets. I'll say that again, gather participants, not assets. 5-to-1, that ratio, and I believe this wholeheartedly, and I've seen it work. Down the road, and I don't mean day one because it's almost impossible, you should make $5 on that same retirement plan, $5 outside the plan, insurance, wealth management, et cetera, non-qual plans, for every dollar you make inside of it. $5 outside for every dollar you make inside. And does your model that you're building allow for that? Are you getting outside assets? Do you know about their outside assets, especially that person working third shift? How are you doing it? How is your model? With this fee pressure down, you have to be successful. You have to. I love, if you're prospecting, if you want to find an underserved market, go find search out a $250,000 plan with 40 participants. There's no revenue on your advisory fee, right? There's nothing there, and you got to do all that work for 40 people. You got to do all those things so people walk away. You want an underserved market? Go there. I think they're gold. I think they're absolutely gold. Unless you think all of those participants are new to a 401k plan and don't have a rollover, our data, last year data, for participants who engaged, the average person indicated $238,000 of outside assets that we did not have. 38% of that money were IRAs in that participant's name, custodied elsewhere. The easiest rollover business. So if you think 40 participants, how quickly, that's a $1 million plan overnight. If you know how to mine it, I could stay on this slide all day. It's that important. Insurance. So we talked about wealth management. I'm going to get to some tools, but insurance is the untalked about piece of retirement planning. I don't mean annuity contracts, inside, the group annuity contracts. I'm talking about things outside. For example, most employers, I never see DB-DC combos anymore. That's become inefficient. But you know what I do see? DC non-qual combos. And typically, almost always, those are insurance contracts. And do you have a solution to analyze, would this person be in good shape with a deferred comp plan, meaning this company? Those things need to be discussed, whether you have the expertise, it's inside of your firm, or you outsource that and do some kind of a comp split. You have to solve for your insurance. And by the way, the individual, that's something that we're big believers in, writing an algorithm to create an income replacement formula for every single person. Do you do that? Meaning, what's the risk of a 45-year-old who's saving money? Maybe their spouse isn't currently employed. Everything is dependent upon them getting to the finish line. Everything, their entire family's retirement, at least they and their spouse. How do you solve for that? What formula? We know so much as a record keeper. Do you know what they have for company life insurance and what that gap would be? There's a peak where they're at maximum exposure. Kids are in college, all of those things. Do you have that solved? I can't tell you how important it is to communicate that to an employer and to an individual. And how can you, first of all, it's very profitable, the insurance business. But second, are you communicating that where it's very easy? That's something that we are solving for. And I need you to solve for that. It is imperative that they understand what's the risk along the way. Hey, if I don't continue to save, not just I, of course, didn't get to retirement, but my spouse doesn't get to retire because my income is gone. That's small. You got to get yourself on pace, and then you have to solve for the risk of it. In that order, by the way, because I think this is very true in life. You can borrow for most things. You cannot borrow for retirement. Get your retirement on pace, and then start taking care of the risks, mitigate the risk. Wealth brokerage, two things. Do you have solutions? The first one's easy. Hey, accumulation stage. I would assume most people on the phone or on this presentation today have the accumulation taken care of. Hey, multiple goals. So I need a college fund. I can take care of that. They've got these different things. Can you find their outside money and where that's invested? And that's a target return goal. Hey, I need 6% on that money between now and my child's 18th year to take him to college. And then the decumulation stage, which I rarely see advisors truly solve for. When I get to retirement, it's target income. Do I have that solved? And what percentage of that income do I feel should be guaranteed? Social Security might be 25% of it. The rest is going to be completely variable, where you're taken from principal. What is the concept? You have to have this solved. You have to have it solved. The good advisors who are extremely profitable have both of those solved, and they communicate it to the participants. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about who we are and maybe some of the models that I want you to adopt down the road. Just quickly, I won't go through this, but we are American Trust. We bought the name, or we took over the name from the bank that I worked at. So we assumed it. Very proud of that. But you can see our history here. And you may have heard about our recent purchase of Unified Trust. So it's exciting. We're on the move. A lot of good things happening, but tools, this is important. And again, whether you do this yourself or whomever, your partner, this is simply a mining tool where I can understand what's inside of a plan anytime. And again, if I had to sell one plan tomorrow morning, one plan, what I would do is I would hunt down a specific type. In this case, you can see an overall plan rating is 45 up in the top left-hand corner. So it's a substandard. Its fees are high in the bottom left-hand corner. I know who's advising, but anyway, what I would do is find a plan that has no auto-enrollment, corrective distributions, which means they're failing discrimination testing. And I usually look for 2 years in a row, which tells me that advisor is not doing his or her job. You should never have corrective distributions. Once is a, holy cow, it was an oversight. 2 in a row tells me the advisor's not on top of it. That's business to be had. Or they failed to transmit a payment on time. Again, the advisor not on top of it, even though it's the employer's job. And then finally, you've got, and by the way, all of those at one time. If I had to find a plan and they had those 4 flags checked, and you'd be amazed at how many have all 4 checked, and we mine for it. We can help advisors mine for it. They have a plan, they're failing, distributions are coming back, and they did nothing as far as plan design. A simple, straightforward plan, did nothing unique to fix it. You have to code that. You have to code that when you submit a 5500, all of those things. And we mine it in a specific way. By the way, the graph down at the bottom, you can see the graphs below. Down below, you can see the amount of distributions going out the door. Did you catch them? Are you catching them? Really telling to maybe even go in and look at some of your own plans. Am I missing? Is somebody getting them from me? What is my plan to create a web? So anyway, and finally, assets. How do you learn about outside assets? When participants engage the system and they want to get their true retirement readiness score, where am I at? They tell us about the outside assets. Whether it's us or another partner of yours, you have to learn about the outside assets. You have to be able to go in and find out. And I circled it there. In this case, obviously, it's we didn't put any live data in there. You will know the minute a participant enters. I have a $238,000 rollover IRA. That's a campaign, right? And when I say campaigns, whether you want to send it to all retirees, people hitting age 62, and you want to begin talking about decumulation stage, you should be able to communicate to the third shift person as easily as the first shift, and base your business model on communicating to the third shift person, not to the owner. Not to the owner. Everybody wants to do business with the owner, but I can tell you the assets that we learn of with that third shift employee who sleeps during the business hours because he or she is working during our night hours have assets. They have assets. How are you communicating? What's your model? If you want to build this, assume it's hard to make money inside the retirement plan. Assume it. And if you want to build it, how do I build it with the surrounding pieces? And I'll tell you, the participants will feel engaged. And if I had to say one thing, and I'll jump into the managed program, and then I'm going to jump out of here. It's a very quick half hour. Managed accounts, the final piece to this. So if I had to determine what rate of return I need, now who's going to manage it for me? Well, the target date, if I just drop in according to age, is not going to work for you. They're going to be 2, maybe 3 target date funds behind, and they have no chance. If I could determine, you could see the pieces that go into it, determine the funding liability, and that's defined mathematically as how much would it cost for me to buy an annuity to pay my income need in retirement. That's the math behind it. It's a very elegant algorithm. Determine that, and then have that money managed for them. So determine what the need is and get that in there. And by the way, it's not static. What happens when the market goes up 30%? Let's look at it this way. What happened when the market went down 30% this year? To me, I fell much further behind. My algorithm became far behind. Automatically, this program would move you to a more aggressive portfolio because now I need more return. Seems logical to buy low. Unfortunately, target dates, when you hit age 50, 49 flips to 50, you move target dates, high or low. That's a weakness. But what we've done is create the algorithm with our partner, and then we have spoken to specific managers, and I have them up in front of you, about creating target return, specialized portfolios aimed at gaining that return specifically. So if I'm looking at Fisher Investments, specifically, folks, I need you to build that portfolio with a target return in mind, unique to this program, and manage those portfolios. And that's what they built. So these are custom built portfolios that we couldn't be more excited about. Each of those are available to advisors, and they are unique and they're fantastic. And then finally, as I jump out of here, I wish I had 2 hours to speak to you, because I could go all day on this. It's fantastic, and it's a fun business. Be participant centric. There's no truer statement than, if the participant's happy, the sponsor's happy, and if the sponsor's happy, the advisor's happy. And I say, and if the advisor's happy, American Trust is happy. That's what we want to be. Be different. You saw some of the things. Those are minor prospects. How do I turn it upside down? And finally, the last thing before I jump out of here is put it in writing. This is my model. Do I want to make guarantees? You will lose business the same way you got it. If you promise certain meetings, if you promise certain service, and you don't deliver, you will lose it. But if you promise performance, which you can't promise, the minute you don't have performance, you lose it. So remember, put in writing what you promise to them, and promise things you can, and you'll be very successful. So with that, I'm going to jump out of here. thank you so much for your time. It's flattering that you would give me a half hour of your time. Wonderful audience. None of you talked back to me at all. It was great. And if I do get questions, I can't see them. Like I said, we will get back. Again, we're American Trust. Love this outcomes-based approach, and we're excited to move forward. So thank you for your time, everybody.